Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Long time no see again. I apologize for the big break in videos, but real life has kind of been doing that to me, and I've also been kind of trying to put finishing touches on my own homebrew game, which I want to talk about a little bit more because I've made a lot of changes since I've talked about stuff in the past. I've kind of decided to go a little bit different direction, a little bit simpler, a little bit more like basic D&D. But I'll talk about that in another bunch of segments because it's interesting, and game design and everything like that is a lot of fun, and it's interesting. Anyhow, let's talk about the death of Duras the Wizard and character death. What happens when your character dies. How cool is that, or not cool? Essentially, I've been playing this Lamentations of the Flame Princess game for about a year. My first character was a thief, and I played him for a few sessions, and he died of a poison needle trap, like Black Dougal of all things, just bam, gone. Oh well. So I started playing this wizard, Duras. I named him after a Star Trek character, and pretty evil guy. But I was able to get him in a year up to about 7th level, which is a little fast if you think of old school games. But we decided that we didn't want to poke around at low levels forever. And the other thing that happened is we managed, just by sheer dumb luck, to win some really clutch battles and come across some things, just by seriously dumb luck and stumbling upon stuff and making the right decision at the right time. So a lot of us are at levels that we almost don't deserve. We deserved it because we did the work, but it's a little wacky. In the meantime, Duras, the wizard, he's collected a huge arsenal of spells by stealing spell books, killing other wizards, the usual kind of raiding thing, but just an enormous library of spells. The other thing he was able to do was just set up this gigantic laboratory and library, which you need in Lamentations to do magical research. So he was doing really well in that regard, and he was also kind of a clutch player in terms of some backhanded politics and charming people. So I really kind of worked the heck out of this wizard. So we're involved in this crazy campaign that involves artifacts, and it's sort of a mission, if you will. It's not really, it's definitely a sandbox, but there's some, underlying things that are going on. So we've been involved in that. But then we had this little side detour. We had a little fortress going, and it started getting attacked. And so we kind of track these attackers, find out what's going on. And it turns out they're coming from this temple. And it's the Temple of Elemental Evil, for those of you who know what that is. It's a real meat grinder. So it was pretty nasty. So we managed to attack the Temple of Elemental Evil with an army, of all things. And we're able to kind of dispatch some of their forces and lose most of our army in the process. It was pretty brutal and bloody, and an interesting exercise in mass combat. So now we decide we're going to go into this temple and do some delving. We go in kind of the earth elemental area, so to speak. And we end up in that room, if some of you are familiar with it, where there's 4 earth elementals. And it's the big temple of the earth god, or whatever the heck it's supposed to be, or room of the earth god. There's only 2 earth elementals in there at this point because we managed to kill 2 that were involved in this big huge battle, but there's still 2 16 hit die earth elementals there. They can only be hit by magic weapons, and they're doing something like 4d8 damage every time they hit somebody, and they're hitting people pretty frequently. So the party is kind of screwed because not very many of us have magic weapons, and the only other thing we have is just plain old magic. So I'm blowing off magic missiles at these guys. There are no big fireballs or lightning bolts or the usual kaboom spells you're used to in most versions of D&D in Lamentations. So the other spell I had memorized was Dig, because I knew we were probably going to end up being in the earth area. And so I use it against this elemental. It's really only supposed to in AD&D damage like clay golems, but we really, what the heck, it's going to do some damage to this thing. It's not going to kill it outright like Earthquake would. So I managed to do that, but we're kind of running out of options, and we've dispatched 1 elemental. We've got this other elemental, and so it's really not wise for a wizard to get involved in melee. I had a good AC because I had some, bracers, or whatever that gave me a good armor class. But it's kind of dangerous. But I figured it's either this or the whole party buys it. So I'm using my magic staff. I'm in there for 2 rounds, and I was going to split after that. And it's down to the wire. This elemental doesn't have too many hit points left. And I randomly get selected that I'm the guy that's going to get hit this time. And so the DM says, hey, you new players, why don't you roll the damage? This is pretty nasty. The wizard has 23 hit points. So one of them rolls, I look, and they roll a 5 and an 8. I'm like, oh, crap. I look over, the other ones roll double 8s. So it was something like 29 hit points of damage, which instantly kills me. So kaboom, I'm dead after a year and after doing all this work. So the first thing I did was start laughing maniacally, just because it was funny. It was cool because I had a cool ending. We kind of laughed at it. Kind of looked like in the Avengers movie, like the Hulk picking up Loki and smashing him around, because I'm sure that's what about looked like, because he just stomped the heck out of him in one round, and so we all got a big laugh out of that. But the cool thing was I had another retainer that I hired after my first one died. If you remember the episode, when things go horribly wrong, I hired a first level fighter, and he's actually gotten up to 4th level because the retainers, the henchmen, they get half XP. They're a bit of a drain on the group, but they're another guy. They're helpful. He was the wizard's bodyguard, so to speak. And it also provided me with a new character to start playing right away, which was great because, hey, I wanted to keep playing. So now I'm going to start playing this fighter. But gosh, what happens when your character dies? Especially if you worked on him for a while. To me, it's part of the game. We haven't had a lot of character deaths in a while because we've been a little bit higher level, but we've been facing some high level stuff, so it's going to probably happen again. And you have to be kind of zen about it. I mean, this is a game. This isn't real life. And yeah, I worked on him for a while and had some plans for him, but it's okay because I can play this new guy and the game still goes on, and we still get to have fun. Was it a bummer? Sure. But heck, I think the game is a lot more fun than when there is a chance of some character death and there is some risk involved. So, when your character dies, don't freak out. It's part of the game, and you're there to have fun. As long as you're having fun, which I did, then it's all good.